Fancy.
Don't say anything you wouldn't want on the front page.
Hello and welcome to our 2022 Candidates Breakfast. The Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce thanks you for attending and extends gratitude to our amazing candidates that are joining us today. I'm Michelle Barefoot, the Executive Director of the Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce. Our Chamber's Government Relations Committee has evolved into the new Advocacy and Awareness Council, led by Bill Kenneth. We look forward to hosting these types of events during the election cycle to give our residents and business owners a chance to hear directly from our candidates. We would like to give thanks to our gracious host, John Melcher, and his team at Crystal Mountain, our amazing sponsor.
I just want to welcome everybody. Thanks for attending this morning. Thanks to the Chamber for putting this together, and many thanks for all the candidates coming out and sharing some thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Also thank our amazing sponsor, Traverse City Tourism, and Trevor Koch and his team over here. And Trevor's going to say a few words.
Very few words. I want to hear from these folks up at the front, but we're proud to be partners with Benzie County. We started this collaborative work just prior to the pandemic. And what we've learned is we can get more accomplished together. And I'm optimistic the people up front see that too, and working together down in Lansing on our behalf, whomever wins, we hope the best for Northern Michigan. Thank you.
Just some housekeeping notes. We'd like this to be a respectful and informative discussion and ask that each candidate is given their time to speak without interruption. All questions will be given by our moderator, Mark Klein. Candidates will be chosen at random to start each question series and will volley according to party and district until each candidate has been given the opportunity to answer the question. I'll be holding up time cards indicating when you have 30 seconds and 10 seconds, and we'll promptly move along once time is up. As a reminder, this is a forum and not a debate. And I will begin by giving each candidate 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and in true lottery fashion,
The winner is.
who gets to go first. This is Commissioner Betsy Coffia. Please start us off.
Okay. See if I can actually get the mic. All right, it's working. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you to the hosts for having us here and organizing this event. My name is Betsy Coffia. I am a county commissioner in Grand Traverse County, finishing my second term, my 4th year in office, and I'm proud to be running for the new 103rd State House. I grew up in Kalkaska County, and as a child, I watched my mom, Linda, the hardest working woman you will ever meet, struggle to make ends meet like so many families in our region. She cleans houses for a living. My first job when I was 11 years old was helping her clean, try not to break her clients' nice things as I vacuumed and dusted. Our family worked hard, but we couldn't always afford basic necessities like regular doctor visits, dental care, and things like that. And when I think about why I got to public service, I think it has to do with the belief that we can get to a place where every family and every child can have those basic necessities taken care of as a community. I learned my work ethic from my mom, Linda, and I put myself through college at Northwestern Michigan College and Ferris State University, working 3 jobs to pay the bills and tuition. And as a young professional in our region, I was a Head Start social worker. I worked with 5 local center-based and home-based childcares and dozens of local families. I've also served 6 years as an award-winning newspaper editor and reporter in Northern Michigan. This experience as a young professional has given me, as well as being a county commissioner, local elected official, has given me a unique perspective on what it takes to get things done for our people. And my working class rural roots give me, frankly, lived experience with some of the greatest challenges we face, again, whether it's healthcare, housing that people can actually afford, mental health care, childcare, and a government that actually puts them first. As a commissioner for 4 years, I'm proud to have built a reputation as a bipartisan, pragmatic, practical, get things done kind of leader. I've been very focused, especially on constituent services and transparency in government. Some of the notable work that I've been able to do, I've helped bond our significant pension liability as a county, which was really weighing us down. And we did so without raising taxes and actually saved the taxpayers millions. I championed and got hazard pay for our first responders in those early scary days of 2020. I recognized immediately that they could not work from home, which meant that they were coming home to their families and their families were at higher risk. And I thought it was the right thing to do. And I'm proud to have gotten that through unanimously. As well as later that year, I had to work across the aisle to get the same thing for our health department. I voted to fund Traverse Connect's initiative to support our manufacturing sector's growth and particularly to make sure that we were doing targeted outreach to our middle schools so that we could get those skilled trades filled out with the next generation of workers. And I succeeded just this year in persuading my colleagues to prioritize healthcare, housing, mental health, and childcare in our new strategic plan. So I think voters deserve to know, and we'll hear today how we plan to address these issues of housing, healthcare, mental health, childcare, and supporting our local businesses, and scoping out to the significance of this election at the national level. We also deserve to know where folks stand on things like reproductive freedom and where the attacks on our democracy that we have continued to see. These are very much on the ballot in Michigan, particularly with Roe versus Wade being overturned, and voters deserve to know our records on these huge issues. I am a big proponent of big government staying out of private family planning decisions. And now with Roe overturned, Michigan legislators will have a lot of power here. The leaders that we choose November 8th will have dramatic economic ramifications for Michigan, for our businesses, because if we choose regressive policies and leaders, we will drive away the very talent that we need to thrive. And that could hurt sectors such as healthcare, as well as community college enrollment and among other key sectors. So speaking the truth, my positions do clearly contrast with my opponent, Mr. O'Malley, and his voting record. I disagree with his vote in 2019 to put doctors in prison for providing the most common medically necessary abortion care. I do disagree with his 10 anti-choice votes, including a couple this year. I disagree with his multiple votes to cut funding for reproductive health care, which would disproportionately impact rural working class women and families. My record is longstanding and clear. It did not change this year. I will always advocate that big government stay out of those private family planning decisions. And finally, in regard to the ongoing attacks on our clerks, election workers, and our democracy, in 2020, that was such a tumultuous election. I, as a local civic leader, worked with clergy and other elected leaders to very vocally advocate that we keep folks calm, that we encourage that every vote be counted, and that we respect our neighbors' votes, regardless of who they voted for. So I do disagree with Mr. O'Malley's choice to sign on to a Texas Attorney General's lawsuit that tried to throw out all Michigan's votes and hand the election to Mr. Trump, who had in fact lost Michigan. So I will always stand up for our democracy and for protecting our clerks' ability to administer elections fairly and without fear of threat of harm. So those are a couple of key issues that I felt was really important to bring to the table. And I really appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here today. And thank you. Look forward to the morning's discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Jack.
I don't think your mic's on. All right, is this one? There we go. You're on. I'm gonna take it out of the stand. That's all right. All right. Thank you. Good morning. Again, thanks to all the sponsors. I'll just say, since we're comparing records, I was born to Catherine and James O'Malley. They were Depression era kids, and Mom and Dad had two children stillbirth, and body autonomous discussion. Mom said, "Hey, if we can't have children by way of cesarean section," which they didn't do in the 50s, I'll find somebody who does. So Mom did that, and at age 44, I was born to Depression era kids. And when I was 11, Dad died. And I was raised by my mom and my two sisters. So I'm not an extreme anti-woman individual. If I did, I'd have gotten my butt kicked years ago. Who am I? I'm a guy who worked 38 years in Northern Michigan in radio, serving the public every morning from when, schools were closed to when Officer Finch was shot and Trooper Butterfield was shot down in the southern part of the listening area. I was there for people, and I decided, 5 years ago, I wanted to run again. I wanted to run because this was another way to serve people, and I believe I have. I've worked. Nobody could expect the pandemic, but when it hit, I was there every night for most of a year, explaining to people what happened. Why? Because I wanted people to understand the confusing and crazy and 1,000 plus frequently asked questions that our governor and her administration had to come up with because of everything that she was putting out there that was so confusing. I dealt with closed businesses in this district, in this county. Remember, I've represented Leelanau, Benzie, Manistee, and Mason for these past 4 years. Now, with the redistricting committee, I get 2 townships in Benzie County, but I'll serve them proudly. But we dealt with all of that. I helped get money during that time for the Point Betsy Lighthouse restoration. That's important. We don't want it falling into the lake. I deal with people, the citizens who have to pay $4+ a gallon of gas, the cost of eggs going up. We tried to repeal the gas tax holiday at this point during the year, but the governor vetoed it. We did try to cut the tax rate, but the governor vetoed it. We did try to eliminate the retirement tax beginning at 62 years, but the governor vetoed that. So as we deal with the cost of living, we've done our best, but it takes 56 representatives, 20 senators, and 1 governor to sign things. And we haven't gotten the governor to sign things very often. So some are trying to paint me as an extremist, but I'm not. I heard from my constituents knocking doors in this very county. Childcare was an issue. I hadn't dealt with childcare in 30 years, but when I saw what it was and I saw how it was the third leg to the stool, housing, jobs, childcare, and I attacked it. And we got 8 bills signed by the governor. Those were bills she did sign. And if I was this crazy extremist, would the governor have asked to come to my press conference to stand next to an extremist on childcare? No, she wouldn't. And I welcomed her happily because I need 56, 20, and 1, and she was the one. Traverse Connect, the Chamber of Commerce, would they endorse me if I was this crazy extremist? The Michigan Chamber, the Small Business Administration, and others. If I was an extremist, would they be putting their name there with me? No, they aren't, wouldn't be. And if I was extreme on the abortion issue, would I be for exceptions, rape, incest, medical necessities? No. But the people of the state of Michigan will get to decide that with Proposal 3. And on the 2020 election, this is my particular favorite in many ways, because I've been called a seditious conspirator by the wacky left. And I've been called a rhino and accused of not supporting President Trump. So which is it? I'm in the middle, right? And the 2020 thing with the amicus brief. Again, I go back to this. If you ask the Supreme Court of the United States to rule on a constitutional question, is that wrong? If it is, then our court systems are screwed, people, because that's how the system's supposed to work. But in an election time, it's a great thing to throw out there. No, the Supreme Court said there was nothing with that amicus brief, and I was out, and I've been that way ever since. So I just want you to know that I have worked hard. I have brought common sense to this job. I have worked hard. I dedicated this public service. That's why I did this. So I ask for your vote to keep common sense on the job for my 3rd term. Thank you.
Is this still on? All right, Ms. Alvaro, would you please go?
Okay. Well, thank you for holding this very informative forum. I think it's very important that our voters and even potential voters, hopefully that will come out that maybe haven't voted before. In fact, I met one of those people the other day, that they are more informed, because informed voters are important to our democracy. I live in Bel Air in Antrim County. My husband and I bought 10 acres there about 10 years ago and started a small farm. Not growing much this year. We have some farmers that are helping us out. We have a hoop house and some chickens and a few acres that we're growing. But in my previous life, that has prepared me, I believe, for being your representative. I was the oldest of 8 children. I decided that I wanted to be a teacher because I worked in high school with abused and neglected children, and I saw that being a teacher was one way that I could really help make the world a better place. And so I went to Michigan State, got a degree in child development and in elementary education. Taught first grade for a few years, actually 6, I believe, and maybe kindergarten and 4th grade too. And then when our oldest daughter was born, we had a really hard time finding childcare. So I decided to open a childcare center. And I knew from my education that childcare, the business of childcare, is not a very viable business. It's really hard to provide quality, pay your staff, pay all the bills, and make it affordable for families. So I also opened a toy store. They were both called Creative Learning. The toy store subsidized the childcare center, and that lasted for 30 years. So I was an entrepreneur, small business owner, and we also opened childcare centers for employers. So at one time, our highest level of employment was 90 people. So I was responsible for making sure everybody paid their childcare bill on time, and we paid 90 people every other week. I also worked for the High Scope Foundation for, I think, 16 years. I did a lot of this overlapping, so I'm not 100 years old, but I worked as a consultant, actually working with teachers in very low wealth communities all over the country, supported by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So I worked on reservations and also urban, rural, all kinds of community schools, and segregated in Mississippi too. What I learned was that the children who needed the most as far as public education got the least. And that is wrong. Those are the children who need the most. If we want them to become self-reliant adults, emotionally stable and healthy, then we need to be providing the best early childhood education for them right at the beginning. Most parents now need to go to work when their children are infants. And I believe it's society's responsibility to help fund that, especially for families that can't afford it. Every child is born with worth and dignity and deserves to have a good public education. So also, I believe education should last till death, because the way that we earn money is changing. We cannot expect to be in a career for our whole life. So we need to always be open to new learning. And you know, just by looking at cell phones, how they've advanced in 10 years. That's how our economy and that's how our job situation is going right now. So I really have decided to run. I ran for Congress in 2018 in the 3rd district. We lived in the Grand Rapids area for about 40 years. I didn't win, but I loved every minute talking to people all over the district and learning about their lives. It's such a precious experience that I decided I wanted to try and run again. So that's why I'm running, because I really believe that we all share many of the same values. It doesn't matter what political party or no political party you belong to. So I just want to talk about 3 of those. Fiscal responsibility. I believe that as an elected official, I am responsible to you. You're paying your hard-earned money as taxes for us to invest in your communities and your families. So I believe that, oh gosh, okay. So honesty, okay. For fiscal responsibility, we need to hold everybody accountable that we're giving money to. And we shouldn't be giving money to out-of-country developers. That the $2 million that went to the curling club has just hired a contractor from Germany, and that's not right. Yes, maybe we do need to give that money. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Mike's, yeah, it's working. All right, here we go. John Roth, I've been a lifelong Northern Michigan resident. I don't want to say my age. Dang it, I almost did it again. 35 years in Grand Traverse County. I'm happy to be home. This is Crystal Mountain is part of my home, at least my history. I worked here for 10 winters, 3 in the late 80s, and then 7 straight years, full-time here at Crystal Mountain up through 2002. Had a blast. But we know the recreational or resort industry is tough at times. We don't have good weather, good seasons. It's tough on everybody. But I left here in 2002 and then went to work for 3 jobs in Grand Traverse County region. Ran a marina, still run that marina part-time, and worked at a golf course and also ski shop and at Donauer Ski House. Oldest family-run ski shop in the state of Michigan now because one got sold downstate. So we're happy to be that. And I still work there on Sundays if you need skis and boots. I enjoy it, great deal, but my number one thing is I'm husband of 35 years. I'm a dad of 2 daughters, 22 and 20, all in that age group. That's tough right now. But they're doing good. I feel good about that. I went to Lansing with just a couple issues. Nursing degree, a 4-year nursing degree, a BSN degree at a local community colleges if they want to provide it. We got a compromise bill that allowed that to happen at community colleges now. I told them that I wasn't going to stop working on it, my 6 years in the house, so either get it done now or we'll just keep pushing for the next 4 years. So we got it done. The other one was apprenticeships. I'll take any apprenticeship that I can get in Northern Michigan, skilled labor, whatever. The one we got was barber. Barbers had to go to Lansing Community College for 2 years to study before they could cut hair. So now they can do it under a licensed barber for 1,000 hours, take their test online, and they're a licensed barber. They don't have to leave Northern Michigan. What was surprising about that bill is downstate Detroit area was all in on it. One of the most liberal representatives that he and I probably don't agree on anything, but he agreed on that one. He actually got up, spoke, and praised my bill and said, way to go. Because they deal with the same thing in Detroit as we do in Northern Michigan. I worked across the aisle because you have to right now. Jack's right, 56, 20, and 1. That's, if you want to build fast, you have to do that. But fiscal responsibility, I heard. We can't add new programs and be fiscally responsible. What we have to do in Lansing every day is prioritize what we spend our money on. $76 billion budget last year. I voted for it. I'll take the hit. But next year, we got to be there to cut it back down to $70 billion where it should have been. Now we have $6 billion extra dollars from the federal government we were able to spend. We did it. Now I would have liked to seen it in the supplemental, so it could have been broken out from the regular budget. Didn't happen. We got it through. But we need fiscal responsibility next year to get it back to that level. We can't be adding new programs that are going to not cost. It's going to cost money. So I worked on multiple issues. So I got 2 bills passed that I wanted to work on. The other 7 bills that I hope to have finished up by the end of the year are things that you guys, the citizens of my district, brought to me. Because of that, we passed 7 other bills in the State House. I passed 9 bills this year out of the State House with your help because there were issues you brought to me. That's the idea, is listening to your citizens. What are the issues? What are the things that bother them? What needs to be taken care of? If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job. And the other part is the things that you don't hear about. 500 to 600 people that had unemployment issues because of this terrible unemployment agency that we have in the state of Michigan. We helped them in our office to get their unemployment. We got so good at it, the other counties were calling us. First meeting I went to in Kalkaska, one of the guys got up and said, John Roth is the candidate they vote for because he helped my grandson with unemployment. I mean, the office speaks for themselves. And I have a great office, very talented, very responsive to what you need. So feel free to call me. I would hope that you would give me a chance. And again, in the second term, ask for your vote November 8th. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking, you're on. I was thinking the feds would go at the end, huh? So I'm Dr. Bob. I do have a last name, Dr. Bob Warzer, but Dr. Bob's been a name that's been given to me by my patients for the last many decades, many decades. So who is Dr. Bob? I'm a Youper. I hail from Marquette, Michigan, where I've been a doctor since the 80s. My original plan was to be a good doctor. So to be a good doctor, you have to understand people. So I'm a social worker. I got my master's in social work, and I started my career as a social worker at the VA hospital and going over to a public county hospital in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Part of my plan was also to understand what keeps people well. So I got my master's in public health to understand what keeps people well, public health. And then finally, when you are sick, to become a medical doctor. So I'm trained as a family physician. A family physician, an addictionologist, a geriatrician in adolescent medicine. Yes, I have done most of it, all of that. Why am I running for, my career? I started my career with the Navajo Nation, my medical career with the Navajo Nation, where I served with them for 3 years. Then came to Marquette, Michigan, where I served for over 2.5 decades. After 2.5 decades in Marquette, I had a calling for national service, and I joined the State Department as a diplomat serving in your all tourist spots. My first tour was in Pakistan during Osama bin Laden. My second tour was in Korea, where I covered Mongolia, Russia, helped out with China and Japan. Third tour in Afghanistan during the troop surges. Fourth tour in North Africa, where we lived in Morocco and covered about 6 or 7 countries there. And my final tour was 2 years in Iraq. I've worked in 25 different countries. I've traveled to over 100, and I have served my country, but without a uniform. But my rank in the Foreign Service is a general. I just want to make that perfectly clear. Why am I running for Congress? I'm running for Congress to do the duties and obligation of a representative. What are they? Uphold the Constitution, inspire others, educate, engage, and to inform, develop workable, passable, acceptable, affordable bills that will become law to help where we live in the United States, in Michigan, and in my district. Another thing is to cooperate, collaborate, and negotiate, compromise to get things done, to be available and accessible and accountable. I've actually proven that in my campaign tour. This is my probably my 250th event. It states on this outline, the incumbent is unable to join us. He has been unable to join a candidate forum over 40 times. 13 months, over 40 times. So I would respectively disagree. He's unable, he's unwilling. My last one would be, I would like to serve in an ethical fashion. I'd like to be a truth teller, be kind, be just, be wise, and have courage to do the right thing. Why is defeating my incumbent? This is my representative. Why is defeating him important? I would not be running against a Democrat or a Republican if they were doing their job. I already stated what are the duties and obligations of being a representative. I don't think they're being fulfilled. I believe I can help you for families and not hurt them. I believe I will vote for you, with you, not against you. I support Northern Michigander workers and small businesses. I enjoy the environment and will not vote against that. I prefer safe drinking water and fresh air. I know as a physician, as a grandfather, as a father, as a worker, that no one should suffer from the lack of health care. I support women's rights. I know children are our future and they need to be nurtured, cherished, and educated. I will support public education and I will not destroy it. That's why I'm running. I want to represent what's the best in the first district, not the worst. That is why Dr. Bob is sitting here. And I would enjoy any comments, questions. I'm very good at issues, very good at issues. Let's end up talking about economic inflation, women's rights, gun violence, opioid epidemics, mental health, immigration, got it all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Senator Bumstead.
Good morning. That's good. Good morning, everyone. I thank everyone for hosting this event today. Really appreciate it. My name's John Bumstead, Senator Bumstead. My Senate seat now, if you didn't know, is Muskegon, Oceana, and Newaygo counties. So the new Senate seats, 32nd, is Muskegon, Oceana, Mason, Manistee, and Benzie. It's just probably the most beautiful 5 counties in the United States. So it's been really a pleasure the last few months getting to get to know folks here, and drive the lakeshore is just beautiful. But anyway, my wife's name is Cindy. I have 3 kids, 4 grandkids. A lot of you might not know, for 35 years, I used to build custom homes. I was a builder for many, many, many years. I didn't have the ability to go to college back then, so I went to the old fashioned. I'm a career tech. I went to the building trades for 2 years. Actually, I was the first graduate of the Newaygo County Career Tech Center. And so I kind of learned how to build houses at an early age. I became self-employed for 35 years. Never had a huge crew. There's 3 or 4 of us. And that's what we did. We kind of went from one new house to the other. And I did that for 35 years. We did a great job. I think we did a great job. And so did everybody we built a house for, I hope. And but I learned the true advantage in what it is like to have a public education. And I was one of the first students to ever graduate from the Career Tech Center. How important those jobs are out there, and how we need to get young people in their career tech trades. So anytime those issues come up, I'm a strong supporter of career tech training. And if you're in the field today, you can see all the job, help wanted signs and where they're at. They're all at manufacturing, they're at electrical places, they're at plumbing places, they're all over in the trades fields. And we really need to concentrate and get young people to realize how important those jobs are, and what a good living you can make in those fields. Not everybody has the ability to go to a 4-year degree, to get a 4-year degree at a 4-year college. And so I've been there, seen it, and done that. And it does work. And I'm a living example and proof how that works. Also, besides that, I served 32 years on the Newaygo Fire Command Board, 12 years on the board. I was actually 20 years as active fireman there in Newaygo. I decided to run for the House. I did 6 years in the House as well. It was the 100th seat back then was Newaygo, Oceana, and Lake County. And why did I decide to run in 2010? We were at a bad downturn in our economy at the time. This is, if you're going to make a difference, and I look at everybody up there sitting on both these tables. It takes a lot of courage to run for office. I mean, you get hammered from both sides, and it's not easy if you're Republican or Democrat. It does take a lot of work. It's hard on your families. They see negative stuff out there. So I want to thank everybody on these tables up here for running, because it's not an easy job to do, especially at this time of the election cycle. It can get pretty ugly. And so I thank everyone for that. So one of the reasons I ran, I was also the past president of the Michigan chapter of Safari Club International. And that's a conservation, education, hunting, outdoor organization. I either wanted to move up there, or I wanted to run for maybe at the state office, how I can get into, because I understood the outdoor issues. I knew how important our parks are, our wildlands, our clean water. So I was either going to move up in SCI or really throw my hat in the ring and run for state offices. I decided to run for state house. And while I was in the House, I chaired the DNR budget, the Eagle budget. As I do now in the Senate. I've had the DNR Eagle budget now for 10 years. So I understand the importance of our parks and our wildlands and our clean water. Senate Bill 565 that actually the governor is very supportive of that bill. In fact, she's running on it as well. But it's actually the Bumstead 565 water plan bill. Brings $4.7 billion to Michigan, lead line replacement, clean water, helping our locals with infrastructure for your sewer and water. So if everybody looks at that bill, it's a bill that protects our Great Lakes. It's good for our kids and our grandkids. There's dollars in there for high-speed internet for the rural areas. There's a lot of good things that can be done. But that bill was done. We worked on it for a year. Worked with the governor's office as well, and that's why I like to run. I look at what we have in our environment. Clean water is so important, and I kind of put my whole career as a politician in, why are we here? It's about our kids and our grandkids, and look at 565, and it's a great bill. So thank you for being here. Thank you for hosting this. I appreciate it.
Representative Sabo. Thank you. My name is Terry Sabo. I am the current state representative that covers the greater Muskegon area. And of course, while I'm here, I'm running for the 32nd State Senate District. I came from a small rural community in eastern Muskegon County, small rural farming community, where I really learned a lot about having a good work ethic. I think you just develop that as when you grow up in a community like that. So I started out when I was a freshman in high school, before I even had my driver's license. I got a job at the neighbor dairy farm, where on some mornings, including school mornings, I would get up and I would be at the farm at 3 o'clock in the morning to milk cows until 7 o'clock. And I'd come home and take a shower, and then I'd head off to school to where I could get some sleep. And and if you don't believe me, I have the grades to prove it as well. But that really taught me a lot about having a solid work ethic, and I carried that on through the rest of my high school days. But college wasn't for me at the time, and so I chose to go into the military, and I served 4 years in the United States Air Force in law enforcement, and then I came back home to Muskegon County, where I have been a lifelong resident of Muskegon County. And I served in the police department and fire departments there for over 25 years, primarily with City of Muskegon Heights. And so having that sense of public service built into me, just not only as I was growing up, but then in the work that I was doing in public safety, it really started to draw me more and more towards local government and what was happening there, and how local government decisions were affecting my job as a public servant. So that's when I decided that, I wanted to get more involved in that local unit of government aspect in serving. So I ended up being appointed to the Muskegon County Road Commission in 2011, and served a year and a half there, and then ran for the county commission, where I served 2 terms on the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, with the last term being as the chair. And then running for what was then an open House seat in 2016, and now in my 3rd term as a state representative. And I did that not to try to impress anybody or to try to accomplish any particular goals. It was really about public service and trying to make sure that I was out there to help people. I've kept my head down the whole time and just continued to work for my constituents. I haven't named any bills after myself. I haven't done any of those types of things. But I just really believe that it is about public service. It's not about me as an individual, but it's about building relationships, which I think are the most important thing that you can do, whether it be in life in general, or whether it's in the state legislature. Building relationships goes a long ways, and that's how you get things done for your constituents. I'm certainly proud of the relationships that I've built, not only in my House district, but in the legislature, and then going forward into this campaign now and meeting thousands and thousands of people in these 4.5 counties. That is really important to me, and I believe it's really transcended into having a very bipartisan attitude. When a few years ago, I was voted by the Republican side of the legislature as in the House of Representatives, anyways, as one of the Democrats that they wanted to work with the most. And I take a lot of pride in that, because that's what we need to do more of. Instead of, trying to, do it the Republican way or the Democratic way, it's about doing it the people's way. And so that's what I've really built my political career on. And it's something that I hold very strong values in. But for me, some of the things that I want to try to continue to work on are economic development, which of course is about, childcare, housing, rural internet. Those are all issues that go along with economic development. Of course, inflation is on the top of a lot of people's minds, especially when you go to the gas pump. And that's why I broke away from many of my Democratic colleagues and voted in favor of numerous tax breaks over the course of the last 6 months, because it was all about really trying to make sure that we have money in people's pockets here at home. And we want to talk about ugly campaigns. I've had over $1 million spent against me, trying to discredit my service as a military veteran, as a public safety officer, as a public servant. So I know a little bit about negative campaigns and what they're all about, and it's ridiculous. So I will stop there. And again, thank you for those that have put this event on. I certainly appreciate it.
Just wondering.
The batteries are bad. All possible, of course it does. That's why we have this next guy here. Thank you very much for those great introductions. We will now transition to our forum. And I will turn it over to our moderator, Mark Klein.
Thank you, Michelle. I just want to thank the Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to do this today, and you've got the candidates as well for being here and everybody in attendance. We are going to pull and get to question one. So question one. So much of our rural economy requires investment in business and talent attraction and retention. However, on the majority of barriers in Benzie County is the lack of affordable housing stock. The current average home price in Benzie County is $350,000 compared to Wexford County at $190,000. What actions would you take to increase affordable housing inventory? Candidates will have 3 minutes. We'll start with Ms. Albro.
Okay, thank you. I read the Housing North report from 2019 to 2025, and what they said is that Benzie County needs about 705 additional housing units, 425 rentals with mostly rent less than $700, and 278 owner units under 250,000, mostly under 150,000. But unfortunately, the $150 billion that was going to go to housing in the Build Back Better bill didn't make it. However, there's an $18 billion specified in the Inflation Reduction Act that is going to go to energy efficiency, especially in rural areas, and it includes grants to rehab older homes for greater energy efficiency. And as state officials, I really believe that we must work together with the local officials. We could be offering problem solving and appropriate funds to target the creation of more affordable housing for renters and home buyers. I think home buyers is important too, because that's where you build wealth. And so we could be working with zoning ordinances. I live on 2 acres, that's our ordinance. It would be great if we could divide that and say that you could live on 1 acre. You could build a house on 1 acre. Accessory dwelling units, cottage zoning, employer assisted housing. I live in Bel Air. Shorts has done a great job with buying an old hotel, motel, and turning that, at least part of it, into employee housing. They use the rest of it for paying for the employee housing. And there is something that I saw with Grassland Fruit for assisted housing too, that they would donate the property for that, work with the Habitat for Humanity for workforce housing. There could be tax incentives, extra short-term rental fees. We have land banks. I see Frankfurt Land Bank representation here today, housing trust funds, homelessness prevention programs, working with community nonprofits like Housing North, making sure we stay local so that the money stays local. We're hiring local people. USDA has funds right now to rehab older homes for energy efficiency. We could have inclusionary zoning, which means mixed residential use for low income and medium and high income. And support that, and so we work on the gentrification issue there. But I would support, like I said, home ownership, because that's a way to accumulate wealth. We could help with down payments. We could have lower interest rates, definitely higher wages in the area, and a good public transit system. Benzie Bus is award-winning, and we need to support that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume I could be going next. Number 1 issue in Benzie County is site development. We need to have sites. Low, I want to say low income, affordable housing or workforce housing is already happening. It's starting to happen. And it's starting to look at all kinds of different regions around our area to do this. Traverse City, Grand Traverse County has 3 projects right now. 2 downtown, 1 in the county. Beta bus terminal and affordable housing there that Jack and I both worked on with Senator Wayne Schmidt to get him money to start it. That's good. There's two projects downtown, Ruth Park, and I forget the name of the other one on Garfield, but that's happening. And developers are starting to look at areas to build. Somebody wanted to put 2,400 homes in, not homes, I take that loosely because they had 80 acres to put 2,400 homes on in Kingsley. Now, the problem there is that it's not smart housing. That's putting 2,400 homes in Kingsley would double the size of the town. The current post office can't handle that, neither can the intersection. It's doing it smartly. Interlochen Arts Academy wants to partner with anybody that wants to build affordable housing. They have property to do that. Kingsley wouldn't mind taking some of those homes, like 200. White Lake is a community that's lost 400 people over the last decade. They could take it. Benzie here, Honor, Beulah, Benzonia, Frankfurt, wherever, by doing it smartly, maybe a couple hundred homes rather than trying to put 2,400 homes by a developer who's just trying to make a nickel, which I'm not against people trying to make a dollar, but we got to do it smartly. But it's happening, and those developers are looking for property to do that. So Benzie County needs to put forward a list of sites that are available to do that. And that will happen. We're pushing for it. We've got the dollars in the state government. We're not going to rely on the federal government to do it. We're working with the state here to do that kind of thing, encouraging more money towards Habitat for Humanity. They do incredible homes and they do an incredible job putting forward homes that people pay for by doing it at a low price. Now, with the inflation and the dollar or the interest rates right now, I see a lot of that high income homes starting to slow down. So developers are going to start looking, and builders, at places they can do affordable housing. It's happening, folks. We can be pessimistic, it's just not happening fast enough.
Thank you, Representative.
Yeah, as a federal candidate, let me end up saying it's not just Benzie County. Everywhere in our district, the housing shortage is severe. It's everywhere I go. Families, children, businesses, and communities are all suffering from the lack of available and affordable housing. Our district, the first district, is Michigan's largest eligible distressed area in need of support for housing. I believe the federal government can help. The federal government recently, Michigan has received $100 million from the federal government for housing support. You want to give it back? That money was meant to help. It's meant to end up helping Benzie County, any county, to help solve their problems. So yes, I think the federal government can play a role. If you don't want us, just tell us that. We'll take the money and give it to another state. You got to know where the housing has gone. I blogged a lot about where has the housing gone. You got to know why. Where has it gone? We have an increase of low income and a decreased middle class. We're shrinking. The first district is, financial wealth of individual families is decreasing, so they can't afford the current housing prices. We have a lack of supply of the housing. We're short 4 million houses, not just this county, 4 million houses. And I say, what has happened? We've neglected our infrastructure, including housing. Cost of building has gone up. I got that, inflation, but don't blame the Democrats and do not blame the Republicans. We don't have anything to end up doing about the inflation, but yes, that's part of the reason, the cost of building. Attitudes, not in my backyard, has to be replaced with yes in my backyard. Just like Kathy said, maybe we could do something different. Land use regulations and zonings are local and state issues. The federals are not going to tell you how to end up doing your land use regulation. Inadequate financial support from local, state, and the federal government. The federal government, remember the GI Bill that included housing? Remember, we had a shortage back in the 1950s. What happened? We created the FHA. We created 30-year loans, profits, increasingly corporate involvement. 30% of the houses in my home community are purchased by investors. And yes, sometimes breed inflation. You got to know where, why the housing is decreased to help solve it. And I'd be glad to participate as your representative doing that. Our current representative voted against it. He does not think that housing is a federal issue. I do. I'd be glad to participate in the local locations like this and debates.
Senator Bumstead.
Thank you. You got to turn it back on. We on now? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, in our, housing is an important issue. You know, you look at, especially our tourism industry, you know, in the summertime months, we need so many employees like Mackinac Island, they supply their own housing. In Oceana County, we have a large grower and processor, Peterson Farms. They had the same issue. They just couldn't get workers to stay in the county. So they were always short 100 employees or so. So they kind of worked with the local Shelby Township. They developed their own housing. But what we helped them with was also the infrastructure, you know, your water, your sewer, and those types of things. That's how the government can really help. Couple of those underlying costs that are very expensive, and working hand in hand with the private industry. Where are your needs? How can we work together to make it so you have employees punching that time clock in the morning and they have a safe place to live? And that's really important. We've worked with the city of Muskegon and the city of Muskegon Heights to help create affordable housing, leverage TIFA dollars, working with the locals to cut barriers for rebuilding and revamping some of the older homes that have been classified as uninhabitable. I think in certain areas we have a lot of those, and let's find a way to restructure those and make them livable and affordable for the folks to live in and purchase, because home ownership is huge. And that's how you're going to rebuild neighborhoods, is get folks into the neighborhoods themselves, not out in the rural. You know, it's nice to have it in the rural areas where you can have a new community, but a lot of people don't have that ability. So we need to look at that. Well, being a builder for, pushing 35 years, right now, the cost of, when you hear the thing, affordable housing, that's tough to find anywhere, because the cost of a 2x4 the last 2 years has doubled and tripled in price. So as cost comes down, we might be able to get more folks into a newer home, but I think we really need to look at what's out there available that's not being inhabited, that's not habited right now, and rebuild those and help the people find a way to finance those on their own. Thank you.
Representative. Tebow.
Thank you. This housing issue is, it is very much a big deal for me. I spent a lot of time working on it and really trying to understand it better, because as Dr. Bob said, I mean, this is a problem everywhere. It's happening everywhere, not just in Benzie County, but throughout. I have the personal experience from seeing it, where my own son, who's trying to find, he's got a job, just getting started in his career, early 20s. He's trying to find a house to buy, and he's having a really difficult time finding a house that fits into his budget. We're talking, $130,000, $140,000 house. But when he finds those, they are not in the best of condition whatsoever. So, that's why I, have put a lot of attention into this. I think my opponent is even having trouble with finding housing, and having to get a 300 square foot apartment to move into the district. I've been very fortunate to not have to move. I've been very fortunate in the sense that I've lived in the same house for 16 years. So that has been a big benefit that I've enjoyed, but it's not one that everybody can enjoy. So when I, hear about some of the economic development efforts that are happening, it ties right into housing, as I mentioned earlier. That's why I'm a part of a bipartisan bill package working with the Housing Coalition, which involves not only individual chambers, but the Michigan Chamber, as well as building construction organizations, and trying to give local units of government and developers and those in the construction industry various tools in the toolbox, if you will, to rehabilitate older homes and to create newer housing. With the Housing Coalition, though, often uses the words attainable instead of affordable, because we have to find those opportunities for people of varying incomes to be able to have proper housing. So it's been something that's been at the forefront of my interest, not only in the legislature as a part of serving, but also on the campaign trail. When I'm out and about and I'm talking to people throughout the district, hearing about those issues, whether they're Muskegon or here in Honor, it doesn't matter. Those are issues that are very important, and we'll continue to keep working on them because it affects everybody in every walk of life, quite frankly. No matter what job that you have or what your income level is, or even if you're a business owner, it's a very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative O'Malley.
Thank you very much. Well, I would say the question was about Benzie County, so let's focus on Benzie for just a second here. Think of it this way. I remember being on the radio doing the morning show, and I'd say, oh my goodness, Midwest Living just said Northwest Michigan is the greatest place in the world to retire. And we all said, yay, we live here. Well, part of the problem is the world has retired here. And especially in the last few years, people are paying $50,000, $60,000 over the cost of the asking price. That makes it really hard to make a house affordable or attainable. And Benzie County is in a beautiful spot. No disrespect to Wexford County here, right? Because you brought it up, but they're a little further away from the lake. So we've got that issue of people who are retiring here and they can overpay. When I was running my first term, I was in Leelanau County, and I was told by a county administrator that year, this is Leelanau County, but I think it's similar. They had 12 homes purchased for $1 million to be knocked down and have new homes built. We're dealing with that up here. So that's part of this, okay? Now, the other part is, that's been mentioned, zoning. We have some issues there. All of this begins at home. What are the zoning requirements anywhere? And do we want it, especially if we've just paid $50,000 or $60,000 more for our house, we might not want attainable housing down the street from us. Those are things we have to deal with. But with that, the state can do more. MSHDA has, there's kind of a rural bias in MSHDA where they're really focused on the big city. And they've got a rule that if you're not or if you're not over 50,000 residents, they're not going to do certain things and allow certain projects. That's wrong. We've got to look at that and get MSHDA to change their ways and change that rural bias that is really much of Lansing has and much of the state. Because remember, we're rural. There's, maybe 1 million people knuckles north and there's 9 million knuckles south. We're outvoted there, folks. So we've got to change that. And then another thing that I think that we need to look at, and I'm working on something like this with the MSHDA folks, is what about a community like Thompsonville? There is already an infrastructure there. Can we build some obtainable, affordable, whatever word you want to use, housing, and then use our public transportation like Benzie Bus, which is great, to get people to and from work? And it's more detailed than the last 20 seconds I have. But we have to think smarter, as John said, because there is no silver bullet.
Thank you. Yeah, so whether it's serving for 4 years at the county commission level or knocking doors, which I've been doing since April, thousands of folks, there may be no other issue that has come up more on the doors than the issue of housing for our workforce, for our seniors on fixed incomes. And at the county level, certainly I've championed this for my entire 4 years. We have been leaning into use of land bank, brownfield, et cetera, to see what we can do at the local level. A business owner told me just last week that 2 of her employees, really good employees, are sleeping in their cars right now because of the housing issue. I've talked to too many young professionals as I've knocked doors who said, I actually won't be here to vote for you in November because I'm moving to Grand Rapids. And when I asked why, they said, I can't afford the rent. It just keeps going up. Hospital leaders at Munson, which is a critical hub, of course, for healthcare for our region, hospital leaders have told me that they have had excellent jobs that they've offered, that the offer has been accepted and then rescinded because when the healthcare professional went to try to find housing in the region, they simply could not find anything. So this is a huge and growing crisis in our region. I myself, until just a few years ago, when I was lucky enough to buy my own first home, very much a fixer-upper, I was always living that rental life, rental to rental, looking over your shoulder, hoping that your landlord doesn't raise the rent, sell the house out from under you, or increasingly turn it into a short-term rental. So I do believe, certainly at the local level, we're doing what we can, but the state can and should do more to address this crisis. I am going to call it that, crisis for our workers, our businesses, and our community's health overall. I do expect a lot more from the state government to be a real partner, and I have intentionally met with a lot of housing advocates who are working on this, and they have a whole list of things that we can and should be doing in Michigan right now. One, I do support a primary resident exemption tax credit for homeowners who are willing to do long-term rentals. Right now, the incentive is all financially to do short-term. I think we have to balance that out. Incentivize housing for our workforce, the people who live and work here. We should look at employer housing tax credits. We should look into housing trusts, land trusts, enterprise zoning, flexibility in zoning. Again, those are more local. And I'm particularly interested in changing the current issue. It has been an issue for 4 years, as my opponent has served in the legislature, but Michigan currently has millions in public funds. And there's criteria that says if you are a developer trying to build in a population of 50,000 or less, you do not get as many points towards getting those public funds. So that needs to change. It's past time for that rule to change. There isn't a silver bullet, but I do understand the urgency. I do expect a lot more from my state government to show up to the table and be a partner to local governments and to local communities to resolve this issue for the well-being of our entire state going forward.
So question number 2. Living in a desirable vacation destination has taken its toll with regards to short-term rental inventory. There are currently several bills in the Michigan House and Senate designed to regulate this industry. Many factions have weighed in, including real estate entities, emergency service providers, and local municipalities. There is also concern as to who should control the revenue, state or local government. What are your policy ideas regarding this topic? You will have 3 minutes to answer. We will start with Senator Bumstead.
That is a hot topic in Lansing and has been for several years. I've always been a proponent of local control, and when I talk to, I attend, like a lot of us do, we attend a lot of township meetings, city, village meetings, and they don't want to be left out of the equation. They want to be part of the answer. And I believe the answer needs to be at the local control. And, when you move around the district, each area is so different. But when you have the lakeshore counties, short-term rentals is a big deal. And we have certain areas where they're 50, 60, 70%, or I don't know if it's 70, but I know some that are in the 60s, short-term rentals, and there can be issues arise that need to be handled at the local level. And that's why I'm a firm believer in letting the locals decide, working with the homeowners, the different associations and whatnot, the realtors groups. There's got to be a compromise that everybody can agree to, but I think at the end of the day, we need to really go back to the local level and let them decide.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Sabo.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a big believer in local control as well. I'm actually on the record with a vote in Lansing for just that reason, or for just that. And that I think it should be more about local units of government knowing what's best for their communities and making the decisions that they feel are the best for their communities. I have always felt that way. I do wish that there could be some more of a compromise on this particular issue because it has been a long-standing issue. But ultimately, I think it comes back to local units of government knowing what's best for their areas and holding those local officials accountable for the decisions that they make for their own communities. I just don't think that's an area that state government should be involved in, to have a one blanket policy, because there are so many different things happening across the state depending on what community you're in, whether it be a very rural community, a lakeshore community. And each of those communities know how to handle that particular issue within their area. Because we have it in Muskegon County, and it goes all the way up to Lakeshore, where they handle the short-term rental issue very differently. And that's okay. I think that's what we should be doing, is allowing them to do just that. But it is an issue that is out there, and it has to get resolved, because I think it's part of the reason for the shortfall in housing availability. So I think it all factors in because it's driving up the costs of properties, making it very unaffordable for a lot of working families to be able to purchase their homes, like, as I mentioned earlier. So that's where I stand on that. Again, local control, local units of government know what's best for their communities.
Representative O'Malley.
Thank you. I too voted against those bills. Bucked my colleagues. It did pass the House and go on to the Senate where it's kind of stalled, but they are talking about it again. You know, I do believe there are some things that in that bill that make sense, statewide registry, just so you know who and where and whatnot. But I want to take you back. When I was a kid, they were called summer rentals and they were generally around lakes and they really didn't bother anybody. And along comes the internet. And now you've got somebody who owns a house, a guy who owns a house, he lives in Australia and he's renting it from a guy from Fiji, right? And now it's down the street from us. The internet has changed things and those short-term rentals, those summer rentals have moved into our communities. And what I said at the time when I cast my no vote was, look, I'm all for property rights, but I'm also for community rights. Who's going to join the Optimist Club? Who's going to make the donation to the church raffle? I was knocking doors in Sutton's Bay and this little lady comes to the door. She's got 100 feet of frontage on the bayfront. And she's like, I'm the last one left in my neighborhood. And I'm shooing people out of my yard all the time because they're all renters and they want to come down to the beach. And it's my property. That's what we have to deal with. So I am for short-term rentals. I am for local control. And I also think that there are some, so when this bill came up, I waded right into it. And I tried to get the realtors and the local governments to come to a compromise. My head hurt because they just, nobody, neither side really wanted to give. But somewhere along the line, we're going to have to find a compromise here because it is part of where we live. But to John's point, you don't want a community like a Frankfurt or an Empire or an Onekama to be 60% rentals where nobody's there half the time, because that doesn't help a community at all. So there are some things we can do. I know it's not popular with everybody, but it's worth talking about. Our emergency management folks are saying, look, especially along the lakeshore here, the summer we get inundated and our small departments are going off our tax base to pluck people out of the lake or to take care of people who couldn't climb the dunes and they've had a heart attack. That costs money. So maybe there's a way we can levy a room tax or bed tax or whatever the proper term is on these short-term entities to help with our emergency management type of stuff. Maybe there's a way we can use that money to look at building more housing stock. There are all sorts of angles, but the current bills that are there need a lot of work before I vote yes.
Commissioner Copia.
Yeah, as a current local elected official, I certainly have strong views on this issue. It is impacting our region dramatically. And that's already been said by a lot of other folks, but the impact at the local community is at the local community level, and the state should, I believe, support any revenues that are collected going to and being controlled by local communities. To think about the impact of short-term rentals on communities, the cost for emergency services, the increased traffic, the increased impact on the infrastructure of the home itself. Instead of having, mom, dad, and a couple of kids, you've got 6, 8, 12 folks staying in a home. It's stressing the infrastructure, and that is a cost incurred by the local community long after those folks had a lovely vacation, which we don't begrudge them, but we have to look at the impact on the local community, the neighborhood character, the loss of your neighbors actually, and then the impact on the tax base. So I do believe that these things do need, if there is revenue raised from short-term rentals, it should go to and be controlled by the local community to address some of those impacts. I think that not every community may choose to, but they should have the flexibility to levy a short-term rental tax, similar to how we do hotel taxes, especially when you have it's not an owner-occupied unit. It's an investment property that is owned by somebody far away. I do think that there, for investment income, I do think that there should be the ability for the local community to retain some revenue there. And I was among the local elected leaders who raised some hell when the National Association of Realtors and other very powerful entities were pushing the effort at the state level to strip away all local control and take away communities' abilities to regulate short-term rentals. That is a terrible idea that will only make a very bad problem infinitely worse. And I don't know how you put that jack back in the box, but I don't think it's a good idea. And I'm glad some of the legislature have backed off of that, but I am concerned, and I think we should all be vigilant. There's this horrible thing called lame duck in Michigan, where it seems like the worst bills, these things that we thought went to die, they're zombies and they come back and they get rushed through during lame duck. So I would urge people at the local level to stay vigilant come December and raise some more hell with your elected officials if they do try to sneak it through during lame duck. So support local control, give local communities flexibility to address this issue. That's where I'm at.
Representative Broad.
This is a very interesting issue because I co-signed the original bill. And I hear about it every single day. Why would you co-sign a stupid bill like that? Well, to make changes, absolutely. If you're not on the bill, you don't get to make changes. Now, as a young freshman, I understand that isn't always the case because I was willing to work and see if we could come to a compromise. Now, it never got there, so I voted no on the bill when it went to the House floor. They talked to Representative O'Malley more than I ever got conversations with the bill because he was a hard no. Now, I was disappointed at that. I couldn't work more with the bill. They were going after the no votes and not work with those that were fairly supportive at the beginning. One thing I give you here, incentives of short-term rentals. What's incentives? One thing, they're buying these houses at way overpriced rates, and then they're paying the tax on it as a non-homestead. They're paying a huge amount of taxes. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should be thrilled with that we should accept that, but it is something they do. They pay that tax. I did get a rude awakening in Frankfurt when I'm knocking on doors and there's supposed to be a voter there. And the people tell me, oh, hi, I'm from Chicago. This is a short-term rental. Oh, I'm not a voter anymore. So that is disappointing. The whole issue with this, the main issue was two things. One was parity towards our hotels. Not by for our hotels, they're paying hotel tax at CBB, but these aren't. The other one was that I forgot what it was now. That they truly are taking over neighborhoods. So it's the limited number of them that is the problem. If you had two of them in an area, that's fine. But when you have them take over a whole neighborhood situation, that is awful bad. I agree with that. This take away local control thing is wrong. It's a flat out misnomer. This did not take away local control other than density. And saying no, you could license them, you could tax them, you could tell them how many people they can have, how many cars that could be in the driveway. You could have done everything you wanted to. Most communities, like Long Lake, Green Lake, they've attacked this and tried to come up with good policy. There's two townships in Grand Traverse County that stuck their head in the sand and won't deal with them all, Peninsula and Garfield. There was another one that came to us and were yelling at us from down by Detroit area. It's not just up here, around Detroit. No one wants to stay in Detroit to go to a concert, so they go out to the outside city. Well, I asked them, how do you handle they have it 3 times you're out there. How do you handle that? Well, we find that very difficult to do. Well, it's the management of the thing that you got to work out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe that there should be state control over some things, but I'll agree with everyone else that answered this question today that it should be local control. Local people know what is best for their community. I do believe that the state has a role and that we could offer legal, financial, community planning, all kinds of different expertises to local communities who ask for it. Because I think some local communities that I've been in, they tell me that they don't know where to start. And they might need an arbitrator to help bring the community together. So I think that as a state representative, I would be in touch with local entities and be as helpful as possible. Thank you.
Yeah. Who controls? Let's start with the individual, right? Sometimes the individual said, why should the local people control my house? My house. So I got that one. We skipped that one. How about the individual? Why can't they control their own? Now, I'm not recommending that, but why not? Local control. Is it the township or the county? Is it the city? Who is the local controller? If that's what you're gonna pick. State. I kind of, okay, let me go back to the local for a second. Local control is going to be interesting. I think you have to think about county-wide. I think, see how my words are? Think county-wide, not city, not neighborhoods, not townships, but maybe county-wide. I agree with Kathy. I think the state can assist, not dictate, not control, but assist. I agree with Betsy. I believe the money should come back to the local, whoever you decide the local is. I'm thinking county because of the resources it takes. State, we already said they could help. The federal government, no. See, I would be a federal government, no. What would be my job? My job would be to educate, engage, and inform your residents, my residents, our constituents. When they bring it up to a person like me, I would end up saying, please make your judgment based on facts. Be wise, be kind, be just, be fair. We have to cooperate, collaborate, negotiate, and compromise to live civilly with each other. That's why short-term rentals is an issue. It causes harm to some, benefits to others, but we live together in a community. And how do we do that? So my role as the federal government would be, again, to educate, engage, and inform. I would hope that you all decide who locally controls. I wish it to be, if it's county, please have representation from all members of your county, all residents, businesses. How about the young families? Because they're different than the seniors, and that's different, different than the businesses. All should have a voice in this discussion. And please work together to get the best decision you can for your community, for your people. That's what I would support, and I'd be glad to help that come together.
Thank you. Question number 3. We've had some great legislators in the past that have engaged in committees and subcommittees on transportation, childcare, tourism, natural resources, recreation, coastal issues, veteran issues, and appropriations. What committees and subcommittees would you be interested in serving on, and why? You have 2 minutes to answer. We will start with Representative O'Malley.
Well, I would say your current representative is great on many of his committees. But to answer this question, I'd like to stay chair of transportation. I've got 4 years behind me. I've learned a lot about roads and what it takes to build them. We've dug deep into the whole moving forward of how do we pay for roads with a declining gasoline tax. Still a lot of questions to be answered, but I want to stay on that. I'm on the education committee. I'm one of the few. 4 years ago when I got elected, it's like when you freshman year in high school and everybody, what class did you get? What teacher did you get? What committees did you get? And I said, education. And who'd you take off to get education? And I said, I volunteered because I know it's important. So I want to stay on that committee. I want to continue to work on childcare. There's no specific committee there, but I wouldn't mind getting back on energy. I enjoyed it. It was my freshman year. There's a lot there that I would love to be involved in. I also want to maintain my position as caucus whip. That puts me in leadership and it keeps me really in touch with the feelings of our caucus on all issues. And just real quick, so you know how it works, there's a thing called committee on committees. Both parties, both caucuses have it. The speaker, whichever party, hopefully the Republicans, would choose, and the Democratic leader would choose. They get together, they look at everybody who's coming in and decide who has talents and where they should go. So even though any of us here might say, hey, I'd like this, that, or the other, that decision is made by caucus leadership as to all the members coming in and what their talents are. So that's where I'd like to go.
Sure, thank you. So for me, appropriations is obvious, for obvious reasons. I would want to be at the table to try to advocate to make sure that as many of those taxpayer dollars are coming back right here to the 103rd, to Benzie, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau County, as well as Northern Michigan and rural Michigan in general. I feel strongly about whichever committee would allow me to roll up my sleeves the most on housing and childcare and healthcare. Again, huge economic issues and drivers for this region in the 103rd specifically. I am currently on the EDC in Grand Traverse County, so that would be a natural shift over. Those are the things we talk about the most at the county EDC. And then Veterans Affairs. I am the commissioner representative for Grand Traverse and Leelanau County's Veterans Affairs Administrative Committee. My grandpa Weimer and his 5 brothers served in World War II, all of them, and they all came home. And my grandpa Kofia served in Korea. It's very important to me to support our veterans, our currently active duty, and their families for the extraordinary sacrifice they make for our country. And there are some specific things I've learned on the Veterans Affairs Committee, including that the state Veterans Trust Fund has millions and millions of dollars, but it's extremely limited currently because of the way our state law is structured. It is very limited to only wartime veterans being able to access a lot of those resources. My VA committee, which is all veterans except me, strongly believes that we should open that up and change state law to make those funds more available to peacetime veterans. And there are other things that we should be changing to support our veterans with tax credits, et cetera. And then natural resources. Michigan, when I was in high school under Bill Milliken, that era was the strongest in terms of protecting our Great Lakes. We had the best polluter pay bill in the nation, law. And then it was rolled back under Engler and then kept back under Snyder. And we have not required those who pollute our Great Lakes and waters to actually pay and pass those costs on to the taxpayers. So I think it's tax time that we reinstate that. Thank you. I like to be on a lot of committees.
Representative Roth.
Thank you. I am currently on Transportation, Energy, Commerce, and Tourism. I'm actually the vice chair. Health policy is one that's been very active. In children's, families, seniors, I inherited about a half a year into my first term. One of our state representatives couldn't keep up. All very good committees that have an incredible amount of things that affect the state. One that you don't hear much about is children's, families, and seniors. Yes, and there was a 10-bill package that went through there that was sponsored by Luke Merriman and David LeGrand, both state representatives. It's called Wyatt's Law that ended up getting passed. Some of the stuff going through CPS was ridiculous. Child Protective Services, they didn't change any of their behaviors or their rules for a very long time. A lot of times, if you got on that list of CPS, bad people, you couldn't get off. And we changed those to make it so it was reasonable. It could have been something simple that you were found innocent of, or never was brought to court to begin with, you still stayed on the list. The other thing that they did was not put people on the list. So Wyatt's Law became a law because 2 women came in to talk about one lady's son. Her husband left her, dated another woman. During that time, her son was emotionally, physically abused, sent to the hospital. The other lady happened to also date the same guy. Her husband went to the same lady. This lady was convicted of 2 felonies of beating kids and was not on the CPS list. We changed all that, so law enforcement has to tell CPS to get these people on the list, so this won't happen again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, when I looked at that list, I found every single committee was appealing to me. But I tried to narrow it down a little bit. Obviously, education is one that I think that I could really add a lot to with my experience. Right now, our public schools are 40th, they're rated 40th in the country for effectiveness. We should be so ashamed of that, a disinvestment in our public schools and the the problems that we have, getting good people to run or to join that education force to become teachers. We need to be working hard on that. There's so much we should be doing and looking at that to find out why did we end up 40th and what can we do as soon as possible to fix that. I am a small farmer, so agriculture really appealed to me too. There's so much that we could be doing right now in regenerative farming to help with climate change and to actually grow better crops, more nutritious crops, better yields. And I'd love to be part of that. I'm worried about food security as we go through our future, making sure that we've got enough food to feed not only our own families, but our communities and where we export it. I believe in the 10 cents a meal program that Groundworks has started, their partnership with farmers to have good, healthy food, locally grown food in schools. So agriculture, and then of course, families, children, and seniors, and energy too, I'm very interested in. Thank you.
The committees in Congress are a little different than the House, right? Where the Senate. I'd like to champion rural America. Rural America. Rural America nationwide needs support and attention. My own party, my own Democratic Party, I think has abandoned rural America, and this needs to change. Jobs are leaving, schools are struggling. We already talked about what about healthcare? What about our rural hospitals? What about our housing? I'd like to champion rural America where 30% of the United States citizens live, work, and play. But without us, America would not be America. How do I end up doing this? There is a committee on appropriations. The subcommittee is agriculture, FDA, and rural development. Rural development is in appropriations. What a great place to be. Whereas controlling the money, FDA, I am a doctor, right? That would be nice. Agriculture, $1 billion up in the first district. I think that would be a great committee to be on. That would serve my first district the best. Rural development, I could do almost anything inside of there with the purse strings of appropriations to address issues of the first district. But a congressperson also represents a nation. Of course, I think I'd like to be in healthcare or education. There's multiple different committees you could be on there. But also a representative represents our nation to the world. I'd like to be in foreign affairs. The United States will not be secure without a secure world. Foreign affairs, the 1% of money that we spend in this nation on the rest of the world, I'd love to be on that. I'd like to serve my district, my state, and my nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bumstead.
Thank you. Good question. My last term in the House, I was House Appropriations Vice Chair. So I've always been on appropriations in the House and the Senate. The last 4 years, I've been Vice Chair of Senate Appropriations as well. So handling the money side of things is very important because it's the taxpayers' dollars. We want to make sure we manage those dollars wisely and to everybody's benefit. So it's a, with a $76 billion plus budget this year, there's a lot of federal dollars in there. We just have to make sure it comes to the rural areas. We need to make sure that it's spent wisely, but we also need to make sure we put a little money away in a rainy day fund. So down the road, in case our economy does slow down a little bit, we have money to make up the difference. So those are the issues that are very important to me. How do we manage the money wisely? Make sure we pay down debt, make sure we put money away in a rainy day fund for long term. And you have to look long term if you're on appropriations. You can't look at the moment, hey, there's a new program coming up, let's just pay for it. Well, pretty soon, all the money of the budget's gone if you actually fund all the different bills that all the legislators want out there. And sometimes you have to say no, you have to put the brakes on and pick your priorities. And it's a tough decision, especially here on appropriations, to do that. Chairing, like I said, the last 10 years, I've chaired the DEQ budget and the DNR budget. So the environment, outdoor recreation, parks, along the lakeshore, what we have has really been my priority. And hopefully I can keep doing that in the future. It's been an honor to do that. It's taxpayer dollars. Let's manage them wisely.
Thank you. I currently serve on House appropriations. On the subcommittees, I'm on the full approps, but also on the subcommittees of corrections, transportation, and then also the minority vice chair for local or for general government. And, when I look at a district like this that I plan to represent as a state senator, it is a very diverse district. Covers 4.5 counties, probably 2.5 hours from end to end. So initially I would say, I don't care what committee I'm on, because I just want to be able to serve, and I'll find a way to advocate for my district, no matter what committee it is that I end up on. But when I really look closely at it, appropriations covers so many different areas. It really touches everything. So that's where I would hope to end up back on appropriations again on the Senate side, because you actually do then have a hand in all of those different issues, one way, shape, or form, that are going to affect the district. Because to me, it's all about serving a district, not any special interests or anything like that. It is about serving the people that you represent, no matter if they're a Republican, Democrat, or whatever the case may be. That is the number one thing that you can do as a legislator, is build relationships so that you can serve your constituents, no matter what position you find yourself in the legislature. Thank you.
Question number 4. The Northern Michigan Chamber Alliance worked very hard to build a framework for the Office of Rural Development that was established under executive directive by Governor Whitmer in January of 2022. The Alliance went the extra step to speak with stakeholders with the Office of Rural Development to be included in the fiscal year 2022-23 budget. It was successful. How will you use the Office of Rural Development to assist you in your policy making in this area? You have 2 minutes to answer the question. We'll start with Representative Sable.
Thank you. It really kind of goes back to what we talked about, what we've been talking about, the issues that affect the rural parts of our state. And I think this is a great opportunity to have this department that is going to specialize in those issues. And that's how will I utilize that? By building relationships again, by reaching out and making sure that I'm in direct communication with that department, so that I can ensure that I know what issues are very important to the rural areas, the ones that I not already aware of, but why are they important? And what are the ways that we can fix it? So when I look at the creation of this department and how it'll be utilized from my perspective, that's how I'll do it, is I'll actually reach out to them, learn some of those issues, make sure that not only the issues themselves, but learn how to fix some of those problems and what is very important in regards to the rural development. And who knows best, but those that will be serving in that department. Thank you.
And Wednesday.
Thank you. It is very important that a legislator knows their district, who's elected in those districts, who's the business owners in that district, and how you can help. Those personal relationships make a big difference. And how you tie those together with Lansing is very important. Now, it didn't matter to me if it was Governor Snyder's appointees, because each department head is appointed by the governor. If it's Governor Whitmer's appointees, we've always made a #1 priority in our office. My chief of staff is here today, but we've always made a #1 priority to make constituent work our #1 issue, and make those department heads your friends. Because if you make them your friends and have a working relationship with them, you can get the work done at the local level in the rural areas done a lot faster, a lot smoother. Because if you don't have that working relationship in their cell phone number, you can't get things done. You get put on hold, and you can't help your constituents. So anytime you're talking, rural development, you've got to make those friendships work in Lansing and at the local level, because you have to mesh those together if you're going to bring anything home. This Senate Bill 565, we had $250 million in there for high-speed internet in the rural areas. So those are the things that we were working with Michigan, all the rural development groups, to get those dollars in there. Because, we all know if we don't have high-speed internet over the next few years, it's going to be very hard to develop our rural areas when it comes to manufacturing, housing, even just living here. With COVID, we found out kids trying to learn from home, you couldn't do it in a lot of the rural areas. So those are the issues we need to work together on, and that's how we can do it. We've got to work together, connect the local relationships with the Lansing relationships, and we're very good at that.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner Copia.
So first of all, bravo to the Northern Michigan Chamber Alliance for your advocacy on this issue. I think, and I appreciate Governor Whitmer for making it a priority and also that it got into the budget because it's great to have ideas and create programs, but if you don't fund them, you're sort of dead in the water. For me, the better part of humility as a legislator is to understand that you don't know everything. And the smartest thing you can do is engage with the people who have deep expertise on the issues that are most important to your constituents. One of my first meetings as a new county commissioner was with Sarah Lucas, who now is heading up this, Office of Rural Development. And I was ecstatic to hear that she got that appointment because Sarah, I hardly know anybody who knows more about the local issues than Sarah Lucas and is so dedicated to addressing them. I met with her as a county commissioner specifically to talk about housing when she was still with Housing North. But she has such a deep breadth of knowledge on the issues. And so housing, workforce development, infrastructure, getting a reliable and affordable broadband across our rural 103rd, as well as supporting our farmers, our small farms, our agricultural sector. These are things that I would be working closely with Sarah on. She'll be hearing from me a lot. And as we shape policy priorities, she can expect to have, I'll have her on speed dial.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the Northern Michigan Chamber Alliance really gets a lot of kudos for getting this position set up. I think it is important. One thing I think we need to remember too, the Office of Rural Development isn't just about Northern Michigan. There are other rural parts of the state. So we have to take that into consideration too. But I flipped that question slightly around for the thought question is how would I utilize that relationship? I would say Sarah is in an important spot here too, because representatives know their districts. And I hope that she comes to us and asks us or listens to us when we talk about things that are happening in our district, because the 103 is different than the 109 or the 10 whatever, right? So she's got a lot of people to listen to and talk to. So she needs to make sure she's listening to the representatives, because Kalamazoo is different than Traverse City. The other thing I would say here, and this is a big key, Governor Whitmer has not been a huge proponent of rural Michigan until just close to the election time. So the question is, will the administration, if Governor Whitmer is returned to office, will the administration even listen to Ms. Lucas and us? We hope she does, but we're not guaranteed that. So there is a lot ahead to see what happens with the Office of Rural Development. I am supportive of it. I want it to work. I think it's great, but there are still some questions to see how the Romney building will react moving forward.
Thank you.
I am a leader of a 501c4 nonpartisan group called the Michigan Rural Advocate. And we have been in close contact with Director Lucas to help rural areas all over the state of Michigan. She's been very, very accommodating. She Zoomed with us and we invited people, from all over the state to join in last week. She said that she is hiring staff and she is open to listening to anybody's creative ideas on how to improve rural areas in Michigan. She wants you to ask her. So her email address is lucas5@michigan.gov. Make sure you get in touch with her. I wanted to name this the Office of Rural Prosperity because I think that really talks a lot about the goals and the mission of this office. I believe that Sarah has a wealth of knowledge and information and will be an excellent person to run the office. We should be looking at also asking her about small business development. I believe that there's a huge place for co-ops and employee-owned businesses in rural Michigan. And I think that office might be a good place to start. They only have right now $3 million to offer in grants, but I think that will grow as they show their progress. I also wish that we had more agritourism and farmers markets that we could expand on in this area. And I think that the Office of Rural Development would help with that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I actually, through our great people of Northern Michigan, our tourism industry, I supported Sarah very much so. I wrote a letter of support to the governor to hire her as that champion for Northern Michigan. Sarah, I do have concerns. Obviously, rural America, rural Michigan is everywhere. But Sarah is very familiar with Northern Michigan and the UP, that's where she was at in her last position, was in the UP. So I am encouraged, I hope, that Sarah does look at Northern Michigan as kind of that top rural area. The reason it didn't get supported right away on the budget was that there was a $10 million allocation for the office, but no details whatsoever. Thank you to Trevor and some of the gang that came down and said, hey, here's what we're going to do with the office, or it may not have been supported. There was no details whatsoever what this office was going to do. So I encouraged after we went through that, worked it out that we're going to do good things. Redistricting was tough for my district. The 104, what currently through the end of the year is just Grand Traverse County. Now I have 6 counties, Manistee all the way up through Antrim County. Excited about it because it is more similar. With the 104, you had downtown Traverse City, which is not a rural district. That is definitely a urban sprawl. Now I have 6 rural counties that are more similar, and I expect this office to be able to help in those communities a great deal. So I am looking forward to it. I am very encouraged with Sarah, and that she'll do a great job for us here in Northern Michigan.
Thank you. Dr. Bob Lorenzo.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. As I already said, I'd like to be on rural development as one of the appropriations committee at the federal level. I'd like to work together to solve our issues in rural America. Who's we? We are the local residents that live there. We are the local governments, from either the township, from this, the townships to the cities to the county, the local people. I'd love to live to work with the Office of Rural Development because they're the state people. What is better than that? Local government, local with state and the federals to try to address rural issues. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Would we all agree? Probably not. But that's a place that we'll sit and debate. My approach on problems, first identify what the problem is. Identify what the problems are, then look for the facts of those problems, then look for possible solutions moving forward, then act. What a perfect place to define problems and facts by using local, state, and federal resources working together to make where we live, work, play, and worship a better place. Fantastic. I'd love to be there.
Question number 5, and this is my favorite question.
Well, we better like it then.
What is one of your favorite small businesses that you have discovered in your district while on the campaign trail? You have 30 seconds. And we are starting with Representative Brock.
Hurry up, I've only got 30 seconds. That's really hard to say one, because there's a coffee shop in Dallas. But I'm gonna do local, because that's where we're at. Lucky Dog Bar and Grill. Best cheese sandwich I've ever had in my life. It is just amazing, and that's one of my favorite lunchtime things is a little cheese sandwich. So without a doubt, that cheese sandwich is to die for.
I love the Market Basket on 31. Every time I come to Benzie County, I even go out of my way to stop there, and I buy all the products in bulk, and that's my dinner usually on my way home. So I love the local fresh fruits and vegetables that they have, and it's a perfect place. Thanks.
Bob.
Business, I'm going to switch over here. Kirkland Community College. I am absolutely impressed. I am absolutely impressed with that. That's a new thing that when I come down here, I drive by it. I'm staying right next to it in Greeley. What a place to get an education for probably, sorry, University of Michigan, about 1/10 the price. 1/10 the price. And serving your community. Unbelievable, folks. Take a look at that college. We need to replicate that over and over and over for rural development.
Senator Bumstead.
Well, for years and years, a lot of families go along the coast, drive up 31 or hit M22, and the place we always hit over the years is the Cherry Hut. And it's 100-year anniversaries this year, so I still visit there, and it's a great place to visit, and it's a great venue for your county. I mean, everybody knows where the Cherry Hut's at, and when you drive by it, oh, we know that place. So that's a great place. That's great business. Happy to be there. Stop in and visit there.
Thank you. In a way, I kind of feel like this is a trick question. So, because there's going to be a whole lot of places that are not going to be happy with me with my answer. Because I can only come up with one. But, I'm a big proponent of doing business with small businesses, local owned family businesses, those types of places. That's why I have stopped at many of the bars and restaurants in Benzie County in particular. I even stopped at the laundromat in downtown Beulah once and did some business there with them. But I think probably my favorite place is Sweets in Honor. And I think it's because of the conversations there. It's not always necessarily conversations about democratic politics. If it is, it's usually bad. And I think that's a good thing because when you hang out with people that think the same way as you, sometimes I don't think you're expanding your mindset and understanding issues. That's why I like to go into places that don't necessarily have that same mindset so that I can learn better about what some of those issues are, especially those local issues. So Sweets in downtown Honor.
Representative O'Malley.
All right, 30 seconds, radio, here we go. Old Mission Inn. It's just an amazing place, and it's a jewel. If you can go visit, please do. I'm going to throw them in here. Pegtown Station, Maple City, great sandwich, and they survived the hard work in the pandemic. And I'll mention the Cherry Hut because it is 100 years old and they're great. And of course, they'd throw me out of Lake Ann if I didn't say Lake Ann Brewery and Lake Ann Grocery.
So I didn't discover it for the first time, but I've had fun revisiting it, especially as I'm out knocking doors in Benzie County and Elmira and Platte Townships. Lake Ann Grocery, what a cool place. Just wandering and exploring, it's just room after room. And they always say, if they don't have it, you don't need it. It's true. My last visit, I walked out with the best, coziest Lake Ann hoodie. I got some local wine and I got a mini bottle. They had a giant bottle and mini bottles of WD-40 because my kayak paddle wouldn't come apart and I needed to oil it. So Lake Ann Grocery, lots of fun, kind of a museum of sorts. So get there.
Thank you so much. The Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce, Crystal Mountain, Traverse City Tourism, thanks you for attending the event. And thank you again to all of our candidates that were able to attend today. We hope that this helps everyone make decisions on November 8th. It's important to get out and vote, tell everyone. This concludes our event. We have recorded this for posting on our website, on our elections resource page on the chamber page, benzie.org. I'm going to try to get it up by the end of the week. I got my hands full this week, but we'll try to get that up here quickly because we know that this type of information is important to all of our constituents. And for November 8th, if you would like more information about what the chamber is working on in Benzie, please reach out and let me know. We are a little ahead of schedule. If the candidates are a little amicable before you have to take off, if you want to mingle with them or ask them a question about maybe something that they talked about today, please do. And thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.